I've had this bag for about 2 years now, and I'm gonna go over the reasons I initially decided to purchase it and see what I think now. So just as a baseline, I was in the market for an everyday tote bag. So at the time, I was also looking at the St. Louis tote by Goyard, so that's the canvas-only version of this. And so this bag is essentially the reversible version of the St. Louis tote. So it's got monogram on one side and a calfskin leather on the other side. And so the reversible kind of feature to it is definitely a selling point to this. But in addition, it's got more structure as a result, and it has this black piping along the sides and the bottom of it. Similar to other tote bags, it does come with like a little pouch that you can detach away and use for errands or for evenings. And so it's also got that really nice piping along the edges and really fine stitching along it as well. I'm always really happy to kind of look at how evenly spaced and precise that stitching is along the edges. I think it just looks so nice. And it's also got a nice little hardware button on it with the embossed Goyard logo. So unlike the tote bag, this one is not fully lined in leather. It's just got a little piece there, but the rest of it is that primarily, I think, hemp-based canvas. And you can see there. It's quite a slim pouch, so you can't fit too much in there without it getting kind of misshapen, but it does the job, I would say. So the other key feature to this tote is the monogram itself. I really liked the colors and kind of the geometric element to it. So when you look close up, the pattern is actually made up of these little dots, and it's these classic neutral colors that go with everything. The brand itself is quite discreet. It only says Goyard a couple of times on the tote, so I think that's quite nice, especially if you are using it for work and you don't necessarily want it screaming the brand name on the bag. So I talked about the piping a little bit earlier. This piping helps reduce the wear and tear on the corners, and it helps give structure to the bag. That said, I do use a bag insert inside of it. So overall, in terms of durability, I think not a lot to complain about. Obviously, there's a little bit of sagging and wrinkling at the corners. That's both because I use it every single day as a work tote, but also just over time, the weight of the bag itself will cause a little bit of wrinkling on those corners. You can also see a little bit of bubbling on the bottom of the bag, but with the bag insert, it should definitely help distribute the weight more evenly across the tote. But other than that, no issues with stitching, no issues with the glazing on the handles at all. And with the handles, they really are quite thin. And so I was pleasantly surprised that I wasn't having any issues with those handles. Just as a note, the handles are a little bit shorter than on your standard totes, I think. So it fits pretty snug if you were to wear it on your shoulder. I'm a bit shorter, so it fits okay for me. I definitely think it's shorter than the Neverfull. It will fit quite a bit in terms of capacity, but that said, I wouldn't fill it up with a bunch of heavy things, both for your own comfort as well as for keeping the shape of the bag in the long term. So now I'm going to reverse it to have the leather side facing out. The sales associate showed me that essentially you grab one corner of the bag and you pull it through. I am still quite scared doing this because the bag, as you can see, gets really scrunched up and wrinkled when you're flipping it inside out. And so, although she reassured me that the materials themselves are really soft and pliable and it's designed to do this, I don't do it every day. I pretty much reverse it every 2 to 3 months to change things up. It also allows for the use to be more evenly spread on both sides of the bag. Now, obviously, the monogram side is more durable and scratch resistant, whereas the leather is super soft and it feels like lambskin, to be honest. It doesn't even feel like a calf skin. So you can definitely get more wear on the leather side. That's another reason why the bag insert can help to protect the inside of the bag. Now, once I've flipped it with the leather facing out, you can definitely see some creasing and wrinkling. That will kind of melt a little bit as I let it sit out for a bit, just because it is a different orientation of the bag, and so it kind of settles into itself, so to speak. But you can definitely see some dimples and creasing on it on this side. But it doesn't really bother me. I think it's a bag that's meant to be used and it wears really nicely. First off, it's got a really long history and a really rich heritage. It's about 1 year older than LV and similarly also had its start in luggage and leather made goods. It's also got this kind of elusive nature to it because there's no e-commerce and only a handful of boutiques that you can purchase from if you wanted to get it brand new. They also don't spend tons on PR and advertising, so it is quite a discreet brand in that sense. Although it is quite recognizable, I would say, but just not as recognizable as your LV and your Gucci. In addition to that, Goyard remains a privately held organization. It's no longer family held, but I do like the fact that it's not part of this massive conglomerate. And so I like this idea that they're focused on the craftsmanship and lower quantity, but really high quality goods. So in terms of pricing, it's expensive even for a luxury brand. This tote retails for $2,400 USD currently, I think. The St. Louis tote is about $1,100 USD. And if you compare that to the LV Neverfull, the St. Louis tote is about on par. And just as a note, these prices are for the black versions. The colored versions are actually more expensive, interestingly. So pricing wise, it's quite a bit because at the end of the day, it is just a simple tote bag. You can call it 2 bags in one, but it's really just one bag with a little pouch on a strap. So you're paying a lot for it, but I loved the leather on it. I loved the monogram design. I liked the reversible feature. And I had a really good experience at that London boutique. So I decided to go with this purchase and I don't regret it. I think it ended up working out quite well because durability wise, it's also been quite good and stood the test of time.